All right, guys, welcome back. I like that. That's good. How you guys doing? Having fun?
Good.
Keeping up with the pace? Is this good a pace? Not too fast, not too slow? Okay, good. Now, you may have noticed on each one of your chairs, we have a little handout, a white handout. Please keep it safe, keep it cherished, love it, and treat it like your own children. Not the kind that take away your freedom, but the kind that the government gives you subsidies for. Because this list of children is going to help you be more influential. It is the list I was referring to earlier on of some of the more important symbols and some of the meanings that you can apply them for. And remember, this list is a starting point. It's not an ending point. It's just to get your ideas rolling. Number two, this is not a fixed thing. You must always apply it to the context, the people, and the situation in an intelligent manner. If you don't, you're welcome not to. Seriously, you can do what you want. You're adults here. It's just please don't come complaining to me saying, oh, I did this and this, and I don't know why the result got there. If you want to do your own thing, then I guess you have to experience your own results and make your own conclusions from that. So my opinion is this is a starting point. It's a good thing to get a sense of what symbols you can start using and framing for which kind of outcomes, for which unconscious maneuvers. However, do not get locked into them, that this must mean that. If someone talks about ants, it does not necessarily mean that they're feeling controlled or stuck in a social role. They might just love ants. They might study them, and for them it means something very different, the fascination of it, the power of them, and so on. Do you see where we're going with this? Okay. So I want to make sure that is a clear disclaimer. Do you want to come up? There's a clear disclaimer so that you guys realize this is not the Freudian thing of saying cigars are other things that look like cigars. And it's always the same thing. It's not, and it wouldn't be appropriate to consider that. So it gives you more scope in terms of how to make it fit different context. Do you want to come on up?
Just quick, is it derived mainly from Jungian archetypes, you said?
So the question is it derived mainly from Jungian archetypes? Primarily, that's the starting point. And then what we do is, and this is what I encourage you guys to do, is the same thing you did in your groups. I sat down and just thought about what are the cultural associations to these things, right? If someone starts talking about this, how do they typically use these symbols in everyday language, and what do they mean by them, right? When someone says, you know what, I've been coming to this job in and out, I feel like an ant, right? What are they saying? They might say they're feeling insignificant. They might say that they feel under social control. So I'm mapping across, or mapping out those associations, those feelings that come with people, I come to me to say, and that gives me a richer sense of the symbols, and hence it's a starting point. There may be flaws within it because they're just my current perceptions of it, and hopefully they're relatively close, but they're just educated guesses, and your educated guesses are as good as mine. Does that help you?
Do you recommend looking further into Jungian archetypes?
So again, the question is, do I recommend looking further into Jungian archetypes? Absolutely, 100%.
More than Freud, for instance.
Oh no, yeah, more than Freud. Freud was interesting. He had a lot of things right, but the problem is two things. One is he had a lot of things wrong, and because he did not like, he didn't brook argument or especially his daughter Anna Freud is the one who really messed things up. She idolized her father. He became a god, so that he could do nothing wrong, and that I think destroyed the whole Freudian thing, as far as I'm concerned, because you couldn't start sorting out the wheat from the chaff. If all you get is whatever this person's doing is always got to be right, the sun shines from everything he says and does, well, you're going to come out, that person's going to end up doing some really weird things that have no bearing on reality, and you're going to ruin the potential that was there. And I personally believe that's happened with Freud's work. He had some real ingenious ideas around defense mechanisms, stuff like that. But then other things got over-accentuated because no one's allowed to question the Church of Freud. It got a little bit weird, in my opinion.
Jung is less cluttered.
And then Jung is less cluttered. Jung was much more open about unclear. Do you know a little bit about Jung? He's a very interesting character. Basically, Jung was Freud's protege and got his start in life in psychoanalysis and so on. Then, as he was going into his 30s, him and Freud started having increasingly clashes. And basically, Freud did not like people saying, no, you're wrong. And Jung had to. His ideas were going this way. Now, something very interesting happened. Eventually, Freud kicked him out of the organization, broke. It's like the father denying the son. It affected Jung terribly. Now, before this big split came, Jung was your quintessential clinical cold professor. Very smart, very fast, got all these concepts and connections, very logical, very left-brained, but personal skills were very low on the scale of things. People they respected him, but they didn't like him very much, right? Soon after he split with Freud, he ended up having a psychotic break. He ended up, for the next, 4 or 5 years, having figures from hell come up randomly and chat to him in the end of his garden. Now, most people would freak out at this point. Jung actually did something which is, I guess, very shamanic. Rather than inducing more fear in himself because of the psychosis, the psychotic break that he had, he became very curious about this. He postulated that these figures from hell were actually his own subconscious, his shadow self, as he later called, teaching him about himself, teaching him things that would free him rather than all the insecurities that were keeping him all hemmed in as he had been before. So for those 5 years, he kept a very detailed set of journals called, I believe they're called the Red Diaries or the Black Diaries or something. The Red Books. The Red Book, that's it. Because the diary was written down in a red book, right? And they're a large collection of works, so it's over a period of 4 or 5 years, and he documents these conversations with his own psychosis, which is really, when you think about it, psychosis is talking directly to your unconscious mind with no social filters. Really, that's what it is, right? The problem is, if you medicate psychosis, I'm not going to start preaching about this whole thing, but you're welcome to my opinion, and as soon as I'm on my soapbox, I'm going to stay here for a little longer. The problem is, if you medicate it, you don't have any chance to shift the river somewhere else. You just use it on or off. And the message is, this is bad, this is scary, so you increase fear, which now, of course, increases the fear feedback loop. Jung did something unique for Western society, something which is actually very common in older societies, the more shamanic, native traditions, which is he embraced the psychotic break, and he came out of it a truly changed person. He was like this avuncular, grandfatherly figure that people loved, and they just want to sit and listen to him. They didn't care what he said, they just wanted to sit and listen with him, and they felt good. Young people idolized him as a true positive force in their lives. Old people respected him for his intellect and his way with the other people. It was a truly remarkable change, all because of the psychotic break and how he interacted with it. Another way of putting it is, it was all because of how he was willing to interact with his unconscious symbols, the messages that are coming out in a very powerful way, and how he interacted with them. So that's one of the reasons I think Jungian psychology is a phenomenal place to start with this whole unconscious symbolism, but only start there. Please, like anyone else, don't, I include myself in this category, do not assume that it's the gospel truth. James knows the gospel truth, nobody else does.
No, I just share.
You share the gospel truth, thank you. But the point is, it's again a starting point. Unless you do your own thinking, unless you do your own experimenting, you come to your own conclusions, you try it out and notice different reactions, all this stuff will be to a certain extent hit or miss. It's a great starting point. It's a great way to feed your mind, but really you must engage in this yourself to understand this more. Does that make sense to you guys? And the process is very simple. It is track your own associations. A great resource for this is dreams and so on. If we get a chance to, we'll show you how to do some kind of waking dreaming processes. You actually started already earlier on with the Strange New World. Wasn't that a form of waking dream?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you had to quit the interference. You can build that up into something very profound, which incidentally, to answer your question from earlier, is another one of the projects that are bubbling in the background. It's kind of how to transform your own personal blueprint without having to have a psychotic break. That's kind of nice, isn't it? But that's not ready yet. That's just a lot of work involved in that. Does that help you? So yes, I would recommend Jungian archetypes as a starting point rather than an end point. Okay, guys, any other comments or questions before we begin? We may as well have a general Q&A session right now because we'll be covering a lot of content. Everyone clear so far? You having fun? Right? Who here feels that they have a better grasp of what we mean by the performance elements when it comes to storytelling now? Yes? And you may have read a lot about this stuff. Hopefully this has now brought it to life. It's easy. It's within each one of you. It's not a skill that you have to learn from scratch and spend years mastering. It's there. You just have to find how to uncover it. It's actually about doing less rather than doing more. It's putting less effort in rather than more. It's still effort in terms of like it takes work and energy and commitment and so on, but less of this kind of effort. Does that kind of make sense to you guys? It becomes easier, and so you get better results. So this is your starting point for the symbolism, and you've already got your starting point in terms of the performance. And please don't think that just because we did half an hour or like an hour and a half of exercises or performance stuff, that it's there, it's perfect, they're going to be there for you all the times. Like anything else, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So once again, consider those exercises as starting points. The beauty is, every time you have a conversation, you have free practice time, right?
Yeah, right.
And you have 100 hypnotists in the room with whom I hope you're going to have at least one more conversation before you leave in the next 3 days. And you have a whole world of people out there who are waiting to hear things from you, so you may as well practice, right? The key then is always keep it simple. Just choose one idea, one concept, throw it in, and when it's so simple that it's easier to not think about it than you just do it, then you add the next principle in and so on.